And I was asked, what are your expectations as a church? What do you expect each Sunday? And we've kind of talked about this a little bit. What are your expectations? What if, are you preparing for your normal 35 or 40 people to show up? Or are you expecting 80 people to show up? What are your expectations for what the Lord is going to do? And that really hit home after I really started thinking about it. What am I expecting? And probably in some times in our lives, that hits home at a personal level too. What are our expectations that we have? And what are our expectations we have for our children? What are some expectations we typically have for our kids? Some expectations. Depending on how old they are, they're going to change, right? How about for a little one? What are expectations we have for a little one? Maybe very, very little expectation. So, say please. You get thank you eventually. As they get a little bit older, it starts to be, taking care of themselves. Making the bed, taking out the garbage, whatever it might be. We have expectations, right? Do you have expectations put on you at work? Yes. If you don't, I don't know what kind of work you do, right? Life is full of expectations. And a lot of times, sometimes I should say, our expectations make a great difference in how we approach issues, don't they? Does your attitude and expectations change your everyday life? Or can they change your everyday life? Yeah. What kind of day am I going to expect to have, right? So I think that's true in life in general, that our expectations matter a great deal. We're going to see that here in this story here this morning. And it not only matters to us on a personal level, but it's going to matter for us as a church-wide level as well. So let's look in your Bibles at 1 Kings. That comes in the Old Testament. So if you start on the left side of your Bible and start turning over, you'll get to 1 Kings. And we'll be in 1 Kings chapter, we're going to be in 18, but we're going to start earlier than that. The earlier stuff's going to be up here. So if you turn to 1 Kings 18, that'll have you set. When somebody gets there in those black Bibles, would you tell me? Or call out the page number? 253 in those black Bibles. They should be on either side if you would like one, okay? So 1 King 18. Do those black Bibles have a heading for each chapter or each? What does the chapter say? 18, yes. 18, yeah, just chapter 18. Yep. What's that? Elijah and Obadiah, okay? It's going to expand beyond those two, but we're dealing with a man named Elijah. Anybody heard of Elijah before? Yeah, maybe. Okay, Elijah was a really interesting character, and we're gonna look at him here today. All right. So let's start. This is 16. Okay. So this will give us a little bit of background. All right. So we've got kings of. You need to come to our Bible study on our small group on Wednesday night. This will let you know. Okay. So there's thank you. Tom, yeah, I saw a few Bibles. We're missing a lot. Fiona's going to get it. That's her job. She's got one job when she gets here in the morning. She can't do it. That's right. Jeez. Kid. All right, so we've got this kingdom that's split in two. It used to be just Israel, okay, just Israel. And you had King David, okay? Have you heard of King David? Okay, and he was the king over Israel. And then after he died, the kingdom split in two, okay? So you got Judah and Israel. So it's split from one into two, okay? And it's split. So in the 38th year of Asa, king of Judah, Ahab, the son of Omri, began reign over Israel, okay? So there's two kingdoms. There's Judah and there's Israel, yes, okay? So another way to think of it, every single king of Israel was evil or bad. Israel didn't have any good kings, all right? So what's that tell you about Ahab then? What kind of king is Ahab? bad, there's no choice. He's not going to be a good king, okay? Ahab reigned over Israel in Samaria 22 years. And Ahab, the son of Omri, did evil in the sight of the Lord more than all who were before him. How'd you like that? On your tombstone, he did evil in more than all who were before him. Okay, Abby? He erected an altar for Baal in the house of Baal, which he built in Samaria. And Ahab made an Asherah. That was probably some kind of pole that they worshipped. Ahab did more to provoke the Lord, the God of Israel, to anger than all the kings of Israel who were before him. So it just keeps getting worse. So not only, they were just supposed to worship the one true God. Okay? But he didn't think that was enough, so he worshiped Baal as well and Asherah as well. So he was worshiping all over the place. In his days of Hiel of Bethel built Jericho, okay? He laid its foundation at the cost of his firstborn and set up its gates at the cost of his youngest, okay? According to the word of the Lord, which he spoke by Joshua. Not good. We got people sacrificing their kids to get things done. I mean, just it's a bad situation. So what kind of king was Ahab? Not very good. Not very good, okay? So now let's enter this guy, Elijah, all right? So we got Ahab, the evil king on one side, and now we've got this fellow by the name of Elijah, okay? Elijah, there's Elijah and Elisha. So if I say Elisha, I mean Elijah, okay? That's two different guys, but they're really close names. Now Elijah, the Tishbite of Tishbe in Gilead, said to Ahab, okay, so who's Elijah speaking to? Ahab, the evil king. As the Lord, the God of Israel, lives, before whom I stand, there shall be neither dew nor rain these years except by my word. Okay, so skipping, it's still in 18. After many days, the word of the Lord came to Elijah in the 3rd year. Okay, so this is, we've got a break here then between what we just read and this. So it doesn't rain for about 3.5 years, okay? So it's not, there's a drought. Elijah said it wasn't going to rain, right? Okay, and so it doesn't rain for roughly 3.5 years, 3 years, somewhere in there. So if you have that severe drought, what else is going to happen probably? Famine, yeah. If there's very little water, there's not going to be many crops to grow. The cattle aren't going to have much to feed on. So not only is there a drought, there's a famine. Okay, so 3 years or so have passed. After many days, the word of the Lord came to Elijah in the 3rd year, saying, "Go, show yourself to Ahab, and I will send rain upon the earth." So Elijah went to show himself to Ahab. Now the famine was severe in Samaria. So a lot happens in just these 2 verses. But Elijah went to Ahab, said it's not going to rain, you're doing evil things, and Elijah goes and hides, okay, or disappears. And nothing happens. It doesn't rain, nothing happens, okay? And so then 3 years later, God comes back to Elijah and tells him what? It's time to go back and talk to Ahab after 3 years of this drought and of this famine. That's where we're going to pick up our story today, okay? So we are in 18, if I can get my coordinated here. So we've got Elijah and Ahab here who are going to square off. God has sent Elijah to face off with King Ahab, okay? They're kind of the water oil combination. What are 2 other bad combinations? There's Star Wars. Now, what is it? Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader. Who else? Batman and the Joker. Anybody else have any other thoughts on that? That's it, I guess. So we've got Ahab squaring off with Elijah here, okay? So we've got the drought, all right? So let's pick up our reading in, I got to get my Bible out here. Got too many things going on. Okay, so 18, after many days, the word of the Lord. Okay, so if you look at 3, verse 3, Ahab called Obadiah, who was over the house of the Lord. Now Obadiah feared the Lord greatly, and when Jezebel cut off the prophets of the Lord, Obadiah took 100 prophets and hid them by 50s in a cave and fed them with bread and water. Okay? Have you heard the name Jezebel before? Yeah. She's a figure in the Bible, but that's kind of a name you hear just out in the world in general. She's a Jezebel. You don't want to be called if you're a woman, you don't want to be called a Jezebel. So she was just as bad as Ahab. Okay, she's just as bad as Ahab. And according to this, what did it say Jezebel did? Yeah, it says it cut him off. What's the NIV say? Does it say kill? It does, Kerwin, it does? Okay, because that doesn't really come across in the Bible I've got. But yeah, she killed them. Elijah is later going to say, I'm the only one left. I'm the only prophet left. Jezebel and Ahab have killed off every other prophet except him. So was Elijah risking something in going back to see Ahab? Yeah, they were out to get him. They had killed every other prophet. So if we were to read through every bit of this, Obadiah doesn't want to go tell Ahab that Elijah wants to speak with him. Did we read that there? So Elijah, so this goes to an intermediary. Elijah says, Obadiah, go tell Ahab I will meet him at this place and at this time. And Obadiah says, I don't want to go do that. Because if I tell Ahab that and you don't show up, whose head is Ahab going to have? Mine. So Obadiah's like, I'm not sure I really want to do this. And Elijah's like, it's all right, I'll show up. It's good, just go talk to him. And so Obadiah does. He goes and speaks to Ahab. And he arranges the meeting. And they meet. And they meet down in, my pages keep turning on me. They meet in verse 17. So skip down in 18, verse 17. It says, when Ahab saw Elijah, Ahab said to him, is it you? What does your Bible read? Troubler of Israel, you troublemaker. Is that you? Okay? And he answered, I have not troubled Israel, but you have, and your father's house, because you have abandoned the commandments of the Lord and followed the Baals. Okay? So Ahab blames Elijah for the drought and the famine. Okay? But what does Elijah turn around and do? He blames Ahab for the fout. It's a combination of a drought and famine, a fout. The drought and famine, he blames that on Ahab because of why? What had Ahab done? He had worshipped idols, followed Baal, disobeyed God. Okay, that's the reason. So Elijah flips it on him. He said, this isn't my fault. It's yours. It's your fault. Now therefore send, this is Elijah speaking, verse 19, now therefore send and gather all Israel to me at Mount Carmel, and the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah who eat at Jezebel's table. So Ahab sent to all the people of Israel and gathered the prophets together at Mount Carmel. Okay? So, what do we have coming down here? We've got a face-off. Eli, you're a hockey fan. What's a face-off in hockey? Yeah, how many people are in that usually? Two, right? Two guys. Face-off, or two gals if it's female. The two guys in the circle, and they face off for the puck. So more or less, Elijah is calling for a face-off. But it's more than two people. It's him versus whom? 400 of these other people, of these other prophets. 800, yeah, depending, if you add them both together, you got 850. So it's him versus 850 of these other guys. And he said, we're going to do this. We're going to have a showdown, me versus you, okay? My God, me and my God versus you, all of you, and your two gods, and we're going to see who wins. Okay? But he says something else. Who are they to gather? Because this is important. Everybody, okay? This is a family affair. Everybody's to be gathered. And see, this is going to get to the heart of why this is happening, okay? And let's look at that here. It says, why is this happening, okay? I'm looking here. I lost my place. But basically, if somebody finds it, tell me. But basically, he is saying the reason why we're doing this is so that you the people will know who the one true God is, and that you will turn your hearts back to Him. That's in here somewhere. I just can't remember where it is. 22. Thank you. 22 and 23. Then Elijah said to the people, I, even only I, am left a prophet of the Lord. There you go. Everybody else has been killed. But Baal's prophets are 450. Let 2 bulls be given to us. So it's going to describe what's going to happen here, okay? So he tells the people, he says to the people, what are you doing? Look in verse 21. And Elijah came near to all the people and said, how long will you go limping between 2 different opinions? You know what's another way of saying that? How long are you going to sit on the fence? How long are you going to be going back between, and who are they going back and forth between? Who would you think? Yeah, Baal, the one true God that they're supposed to be following, and these other gods, Baal or Asher or whoever it would be. You keep going back and forth between the two. You can't do that. You need to quit sitting on the fence and pick one. If God is the one true God, then go with Him. If Baal is the one true God, then go with him. And so we're going to have this face-off. We're going to have this showdown so we can see who the one true God is. And go with that person. Turn your hearts to whichever one wins. Okay? And so here's the game, or here's the contest that he's setting up. Verse 23, he says, go get 2 bulls. Okay, that's what they'd sacrifice. Go get 2 bulls, okay? And we're going to set up 2 altars. I'm going to set up an altar, and you're going to set up an altar. And I'm going to take wood and put it on my altar, and you're going to take wood and put it on your altar. And then I'm going to take a bowl and cut it up and put the pieces on my altar. You're going to take your bowl and cut it up and put the pieces on your altar. But we're not going to light the fire. We're just going to set the pieces on there. And here's what we're going to do then. You pray to your God, all 450 or all 400 or all 450 or all 850, how many are going to be there? You pray to your God. You've got 800 people praying. Surely He's going to hear that. And we'll see what happens. And then when you're finished, just me alone, just Elijah, I'll pray to my God and see what happens. That's the contest. And whichever God comes down and lights the fire is the one true God. That's the contest that's going to happen, and everybody, all Israel's out to watch, okay? They didn't have TV back then. They had to go do something. So they're watching this contest. So they all head out there. They all head out to Mount Carmel to watch this. And so the prophets of Baal do their thing. They build their altar. They put the wood on it. They slice up the bull, and they put it on there. And then they start praying. They start praying in the morning, and they keep praying. And they keep praying, and they keep praying. And it gets till midday, and nothing has happened. Okay? They're crying out, they're moaning, they're wailing, praying to their God. And the funny thing is, Elijah starts mocking them and making fun of them. Okay? Listen to this. Let's see. And verse 27, and at noon Elijah mocked them, saying, cry aloud, for he is a God. Either he is musing, or he is relieving himself. You know, he's going to the bathroom. He's got the fan on. He can't hear you. He is on a journey, or perhaps he's asleep. You know, he's not paying attention. You better cry louder, okay? Do whatever you're doing louder. So they start doing all sorts of stuff and dancing around. And what happens? Nothing. Nothing happens. Not a single thing happens. Verse 29, and as midday passed, they raved on until the time of the offering of the oblation. That was like kind of the sacrifice. But there was no voice. No one answered. No one paid attention. They got no answer from their God or gods. Okay? Now it's Elijah's turn. Okay? Elijah said to the people, come near to me. And all the people came near to him. This is verse 30. And if we get into it more, he doesn't just build an altar, he repairs an altar. And we don't have time to go into that. But Elijah does his thing. He builds the altar, he puts wood on it. But then he does something different. He builds a trench around the altar. Okay? Now this is a time, remember, of what? What hadn't happened in 3 years? No rain. So water's hard to come by, right? But Elijah says, I want you to go get some buckets of water and dump them all over the wood. Does wet wood light? No. Okay, he's like, dump it on there. And so they dump some water on there. And then he's like, that's not enough. Go back and get more. Dump more water on there. And they dump so much water in there, not does it only soak everything, but it runs down into the trench and fills the trench with water. Okay? And I don't know, I wouldn't want to light that. I wouldn't want to attempt to light that. Okay? But look what happens. Verse 36, at the time of the offering, Elijah the prophet came near and said, O God, O Lord, God of Israel, Abraham, Isaac, let it be known this day that you are God in Israel, that I am your... Okay, this is where I couldn't find. Okay? Let it be known that you are the true God, that I am your servant, and that I have done these things at your word. Verse 27, answer me, O Lord, answer me, that this people may know that you, O Lord, are God, and that you have turned their hearts back. Then the fire of the Lord fell and consumed the burnt offering and all the wood and all the stones and all the dust and licked the water that was in the trench. And when the people saw it, they fell on their faces and said, the Lord, He is God. The Lord, He is God. Now, you can go on and read verse 40. Elijah doesn't have a whole lot of sympathy for the prophets. He takes them down to the brook at Kishon and slaughters them there. So they're gone. But what happens? Which God answers? The true God, Yahweh, or whatever, however you want to say it. So we had this contest, and one God showed up, one God didn't. We talk about expectations. Think about that from Elijah's point of view for a moment. Elijah could have stayed hidden wherever he was, in a cave or wherever. But God came to him and said, you need to go confront Ahab. You need to engage him. Okay? Elijah could have stayed hidden, but he didn't. He went. He didn't have to engage. He didn't have to participate in that contest, but he did. What do you think Elijah's expectations were of God when he decided to obey and to listen and do what God told him? What do you think his expectations were? Anybody have any? That he would answer him, right? Elijah gets like so far into this, like eyeball deep, you know, where he's laughing at the prophets and mocking. I mean, in all reality, he's on the knife's edge of being killed himself. If this doesn't work, it's not like he can go home and say, "Oh, sorry guys, it didn't work out." I mean, he's on a short leash. If this doesn't work, he's a dead man. All the other prophets are dead. This is it. He goes all in. Abby, if you just want to put up the little screen there, Elijah goes all in. And his expectations were that when he went all in, God was going to show up. It wasn't to rescue him. It was mainly for what? That they would know that the one true God is the true God, and that people would turn their hearts back to God. Elijah just keeps like crawling further on that limb, and then kind of cuts the limb off that he's on. Because I don't know how I would approach something like that. You know, I mean, he puts his neck out there, doesn't he? I mean, when he sets up this contest, there's no going back. It's not like he had the Zippo or a bottle of gasoline that if God didn't come down and consume it, he could pull a magic trick and get out of there. You know, that's not how it worked. He risked it. He went out there. He went all in. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what his kind of mindset, was. Certainly, I think he's got the expectation that God, I think, was going to do something. And I don't know what he expected God to do, but he had some amazing expectations of what God was going to do. We all face times when I think God challenges us to go all in, and just expect that he's going to show up. You know, he's going to do what he has called us to do. I think that's the God that we serve, that when he calls us to do something, that we can step out and go all in and join God's movement. And I think we all have points in our lives personally when that happens. Happened to me when I was in college. I came to this point where I had to decide whether I was going to do what God wanted me to do or whether I was going to do what I wanted to do, and it involved a complete shift in direction. It happened again then, 6 years ago, before we came here. It was another situation like that. And I bet you've got stories like that too, where it comes to a point where you've got to make a decision. Am I going to follow God? Can I go all in? It may be complete change of everything. I don't know. But we all face those. We also face that as a church as a whole too. And I think we're coming to that as we relaunch. I think God's asking us to go all in and just trust Him that He's gonna show up. That our expectations can be high. What are we expecting God to do? What are we settling for? But what are we expecting God to do? I think this can be our Elijah time, where God calls us to do something great. I'd ask you to think about that. What is God asking you to do? Both personally and through the church. How can you individually, how can we all go kind of all in as we look for what God has for us as we move into these next few months? So be thinking about that. That's my challenge to you today. How do we go all in? How do we trust God? How do we have great expectations? Stupid Charles Dickens reference. So it doesn't always have to be money. I mean, like when we were going to school, we decided, all right, we're going to trust God. We're going to do this. I committed to go to the school. Brienne committed to working at the school, but we didn't have a place to live. And the school wasn't wealthy, but it just happened to own land in a very wealthy area, and so rent was through the roof. Like the only way we're going to be able to afford this if we get on-campus housing for married students, which there wasn't many available. So, all right, we'll just trust the Lord. This is going to happen. We committed. Brian took the job. We quit our other jobs and got ready to go, and we didn't have a place to live. But we got a call like a week later saying a apartment had opened up for us. So the Lord works, I think, when and I don't want to say that we can't goad God into doing things. I don't think that's what this is about, that we force God to act, but it's responding to what He wants us to do. So it's not like saying, well, I want the new car, so I'm going to go out and buy it and God's going to provide for it. I'm not really sure that's the way it works. But when we respond to ministry and to His Word and to His what He wants us to do in His kingdom, I think that's where it happens.